What's going on, everybody? My name is Tyler, and today is day number 8, which means we are, after today, 25% of the way done through my 32 straight days previewing the 32 NFL teams ahead of the 2020 NFL season. If you haven't watched the first 7 episodes, the link for the full playlist will be down below in the description. So far, so good, I think. I hope you guys are enjoying them as well. In this episode, we're going to be looking at the Cleveland Browns, the dog pound. Last season, the Browns had the most hype out of any other NFL team entered in 2019 season. Freddie Kitchens was seen to be the Baker Mayfield whisperer, if you will. He thought he could take this team to another level. Mayfield had all the swagger in the world. They traded for Odell Beckham Jr., and they already had a nice core in Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, and David Njoku. Safe to say, if you've been living under a rock, the Browns underperformed, went 6-10, missing the playoffs once again. Mayfield took a step back big time. OBJ was not his usual self. Chubb and Landry showed signs. Chubb especially showed signs of being a top running back. Landry, he showed some signs of usual production, but wasn't his usual self. And Njoku dealt with injuries. And at the end of the day, the Browns just failed in the spotlight. And I think this will be good for them in the sense that now there's still a spotlight there because of all the talent, but it's not as big as it was originally ahead of the 2019 season because they underperformed. So there aren't as lofty expectations for the Browns to perform at such a high level as people think. A lot of people thought they were going to win the Super Bowl last year, which was mind-boggling to me. So Njoku might be on his way out, though, because with the addition of Austin Hooper at tight end, he's asked for a trade. The Browns traded for Hooper in the offseason, who for Atlanta, prior to getting hurt, was a great red zone threat, was one of the top tight ends in the NFL in terms of fantasy points. And I think he can add another level to this team to be a red zone threat because OBJ and Jarvis Landry, they're great in the open field, but I wouldn't really consider them red zone threats. Hooper will be that guy for this team. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb performs the best 1-2 punch at running back probably in the NFL. And if you're asking me who I want as a backup running back, looking at all the starters, Kareem Hunt is probably the best backup running back in the entire NFL. Chubb has already shown he could be one of the best. So I like that there. And I think that's good for Mayfield because it allows him to hand the ball off, and the Browns will not have to worry about a not-so-stellar running back play because they got one of the best backfields in the NFL, and Mayfield can just focus on throwing the football down the field and just slinging it, waking up feeling dangerous, to quote Baker. I know, it is a dumb quote if you ask me. They also signed Jack Conklin in free agency. He'll be a nice stalwart on that offensive line. They also drafted Jedrick Wills out of Alabama. So those two guys will play the offensive tackle positions, it looks like. And they will provide much needed protection for Mayfield to give him time to throw to all these offensive weapons. On paper, they arguably have the best offensive football, in my opinion. They're up there with the Chiefs. They're up there with the Cowboys. They're up there with the Ravens. And now it's just a matter of can Kevin Stefanski, their new head coach, put it all together, do something that no Browns head coach has done in what seems like forever, is get that team to the playoffs. On defense, there's some nice pieces as well. Olivier, Vernon, and Denzel Ward are two of the top players at their positions. Vernon on the defensive line, Denzel Ward in the secondary. And then there's Myles Garrett, who, although he had the bonehead move of whacking Mason Rudolph with his helmet during late last season, was suspended for the remainder of the 2019 season, most likely will be on the field for the start of the 2020 season. He got a massive contract in the offseason, and that's primarily due to the fact that he was one of the best pass rushers in the entire NFL. He was, I think, leading or near the top of the league in sacks prior to his suspension, was in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year until he got suspended. And I think he continued that production because he is such an immense talent overall. So now it's just, once again, a matter of can the offense and the defense perform equally well to compete? Because they got not an easy schedule, but they got definitely some winnable games on their schedule. Looking at their schedule, seamless transition. I mean, what can I say? I'll leave that all below, by the way, in the description, their full schedule, as well as my wins and losses projections for the Browns, like I do in every single preview. They start off at Baltimore. Last season, the Browns split their matchups with the Ravens, and I think they'll do so once again this year. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Ravens come out with a vengeance in this Week 1 game and try to rip the Browns' head off, basically, because they embarrassed them, the Browns did last season. In their first matchup, they won 40-25. The Ravens ended turning things around, winning 31-15. But I think the Ravens want to have as much of a grip on this AFC North as possible, and annihilating the Browns will be a good start there. They take on the Bengals at home in Week 2, a rivalry game, and I think the Browns will win. They'll sweep the Bengals, personally, in my opinion. They take on Washington in Week 3, Dallas Week 4. This game I'm very excited for. I do have the Browns losing this one, but I could definitely see them winning. The only reason why I have them losing is because they're going to be on the road. But given the two offensive firepowers, like I just mentioned, both these two teams have some of the best offenses in football. It would be a great display of offense here. Week 5, they go back home to take on the Colts. Week 6, that pivotal game against the Steelers on the road. If there are fans at this game, watch out for a bloodbath in terms of berating Myles Garrett, because this will be Garrett's possibly first time back in Pittsburgh as a player. And if there's fans there, watch out. They will not let up on the comments and probably the things they shouldn't say towards Garrett, but he probably deserves it given the fact he basically assaulted Mason Rudolph with his helmet. I'll be totally honest. Week 7, they go on the road to Cincinnati. Week 8, they go to Las Vegas, or they play at home against the Raiders. So a nice, easy way to finish their pre-bye week season, because they have their bye week in Week 9. And it works out for them 8 games before, 8 games prior to their bye, so they get a nice, well-needed rest halfway through. Unlike some teams who have like that Week 13 bye or that Week 5 bye. It's just really weird for me. I don't like how they do that. I think all teams should have their bye somewhere between Week 7 and 10, personally, but that's just me. Speaking of Week 10, they take on the Texans at home. So coming out of their bye, they got a tougher game, but I do have the Browns winning that matchup I'm losing that matchup to Houston, but I can definitely see them winning, being that it is at home. Week 11, I have them taking on Philadelphia. Another loss there, so 2 straight losses coming out of their bye week, which could be concerning. But looking at how they finish, they take on at Jacksonville, at Tennessee, versus Baltimore, at New York Giants, at New York Jets, versus Pittsburgh. Jaguars, Giants, Jets, 3 wins right there. Baltimore Steelers, they could win either one of those games. And then Tennessee, although I have them losing that one, simply because they'll be on the road and Derrick Henry ran all over the squad last year, the Browns lost badly to the Titans last season. They lost 43-13. So they could come out seeking revenge. I don't see it happening, but watch out for Derrick Henry to have another monster game. That will be a good test for that Browns defense, especially their run D. Overall, looking at their schedule, it's all about limiting the craziness. I have them at 11-5, the 5 seed in the AFC. I have them splitting their matchups with Baltimore, sweeping the Bengals, splitting their matchups with the Steelers. They could easily win both their games against the Steelers, both their games against the Bengals, and one game against the Ravens, go 5-1 in their division, and compete for the division crown. They're going to be one game back of the Baltimore Ravens and the 2 seed in the AFC, or it's going to be the 3 seed because of the Tennessee Titans. We'll get to that later, a couple weeks for the Titans. But they could easily win this division if one or two things go their way based on how it plays out. And given the fact, I have them losing to Houston, that's a game they could easily win. I have them losing to Dallas. That's a game the Browns could win. It's all about, though, they just got to limit the distraction surrounding this team. And that starts and ends with Mayfield. Mayfield, I think he had all this hype around him. He had all the confidence around him. He was in all these commercials and whatnot, all these advertisements. And I think that really deterred him from doing the best he possibly could on the field and prevented him from taking the next step forward. He's now in year 3. He hasn't shown to be the best quarterback of his draft class. That probably has to go to Lamar Jackson, then Josh Allen. He's probably the 3rd best quarterback in his class in that first round thus far. He wants to take a next step, and I think performing well this season will definitely do so. The Browns are going to be a fun team to watch given how many stars they have on this team. So here are the 5 games I think I'm going to try to keep my eyes on the most. Week 4 against Dallas, 2 top caliber offenses going at it in Jerry's world at Dallas. It's just going to be really fun to watch. Week 6 against the Steelers, like I mentioned, if there's fans there, watch out for this one. Myles Garrett, he's going to have a rough night in terms of the fans. First game, Browns versus Steelers, since that incident, if I'm not mistaken, yes. I'm not too sure. I try to remember whether it was was it November or December last season. It was November. So this is the second matchup since their infamous Myles Garrett incident, because it was a Thursday night game last season. So, hey, it's been a long off season. I mean, come on. But this game will be very much a much-watched game for any NFL fan. Week 11 against the Eagles. This is just a game where I think the Browns, this will be a nice litmus test for them to see how they perform against a top team. The second game after the bye, I have them losing this one. It's a game they possibly could win, and it could be one of those games where they need to win to help their cause in terms of the playoffs. The fourth game I have for the Browns at the Titans, like I mentioned last year, Derrick Henry ran all over them. Can the Browns stop him? The Ravens have one of the best running offenses in all football, so the Browns should get good practice. We'll see if that works against the Titans. And finally, Week 14 against the Ravens. These two teams will be going at it for the division crown. In my opinion, this game could decide the division. I don't have the Browns winning this game. I have the Browns winning their first game against the Ravens. So this game could be the ultimate decider. If the Browns win this one, though, they could easily win the division. That's the thing with the Browns this season. They could win their division, or they could finish in third place once again. They just need to control the things they can control and limit the noise surrounding this squad. If they can do that, they will get back to the playoffs for the first time in a long time. But let me know what you think down below in the comment section. Will the Browns make it back to the playoffs in 2020? Will Baker Mayfield take the next step forward in his progression as a quarterback in the NFL? Thank you all so much for watching. Next episode, we are going to be looking at America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Although I don't think they're America's team, but that's for tomorrow. Thank you all so much for watching once again. We'll see you next time.